Hylozoism is a philosophical doctrine that holds that matter is alive or that life is a fundamental and inherent property of all matter. The term Hylozoism comes from the Greek words hyl, meaning matter, and zoe, meaning life. It posits that all physical substances, including those that appear inanimate, have some form of vitality or life force. Core ideas of Hylozoism: matter and life are inseparable. Hylozoism rejects the idea that life is something that emerges separately from matter. Instead, Hylozoism suggests that life is a quality that exists within all material things. This means that all matter, whether it appears animate or inanimate, possesses some form of life or vitality, though the degree and expression of that life can vary. This view contrasts with mechanical materialism, which treats matter as passive and lifeless, and suggests that life is something that emerges under specific conditions in living organisms. Life in all things. Hylozoism implies that the entire universe is alive in some way, and that even seemingly inert objects such as stones, planets, or atoms may have a form of innate life force. This life force is not necessarily a conscious or sentient life, but an underlying vitality inherent in matter itself. In this sense, life is not confined to biological organisms, but is a characteristic of all matter at different levels of complexity. Precursor to pantheism. Hylozoism can be seen as a precursor to certain forms of pantheism, where God is identified with the universe, and everything in the universe is seen as divine or imbued with divinity. In Hylozoism, the universe or nature itself is alive, and all its parts are animated by a form of cosmic vitality. The idea of Hylozoism can be traced back to ancient philosophy, particularly in the pre-Socratic era. Early Greek philosophers such as Heraclitus and Anaximenes seemed to hold views that linked life to matter, though in varying ways. Anaximander proposed that the primordial substance, the apeiron, was an eternal, indeterminate force that contained both life and matter. The most explicit version of Hylozoism is often attributed to the ancient philosopher Aristotle, who viewed the soul, the principle of life, as an integral form of being that could be present even in plants and animals, though he did not explicitly assert that all matter is alive. In more recent times, Hylozoism has been discussed in the context of philosophy of mind, panpsychism, and process philosophy. Some panpsychists believe that all matter has some form of consciousness or mental aspect, which is related to the Hylozoistic idea that life or vitality is present in all things. Alfred North Whitehead, a prominent figure in process philosophy, argued that all entities, even inanimate ones, have a process of becoming and have internal qualities that allow for self-realization and the evolution of form, which shares some similarities with Hylozoism. Relation to vitalism. Hylozoism is often associated with vitalism, which is the belief that life is governed by a special life force, distinct from physical or chemical laws. While vitalism emphasizes an external force that animates living organisms, Hylozoism is more focused on the idea that life and matter are inherently united, with matter itself being animated by vitality. Examples of Hylozoistic thought. Heraclitus. The ancient Greek philosopher Heraclitus is often considered an early proponent of Hylozoism because of his belief that the universe is in a constant state of flux and transformation, driven by a force he called the Logos. While not strictly Hylozoism in the modern sense, his conception of a world always in motion with an underlying principle of change hints at a vital, dynamic universe. Spinoza. Baruch Spinoza, the Dutch philosopher, proposed a system where God and nature are identical, a form of pantheism, and substance is both divine and alive. In his system, all attributes of nature, including thought and extension, are expressions of the same underlying reality, which could be interpreted as a form of Hylozoism. Panpsychism. In modern philosophy, panpsychism, the idea that consciousness or mind-like qualities are present in all forms of matter, shares affinities with Hylozoism. Panpsychists argue that even particles, atoms, and fundamental aspects of the universe may have some rudimentary form of consciousness or experience. Process philosophy. Alfred North Whitehead's process philosophy presents a vision of the universe where all entities, both living and non-living, are in a constant state of becoming and have a form of internal experience. Though not strictly Hylozoism, this framework allows for an inherent vitality in all matter, aligning with some of the key ideas of Hylozoism. Hylozoism in popular culture and science. the Gaia hypothesis proposed by scientist James Lovelock, suggests that the Earth itself functions as a self-regulating organism. While this theory is not explicitly hylozoistic, it shares the idea that the Earth's biological and physical systems are interconnected in ways that maintain the conditions for life. Science fiction. Some science fiction works explore themes of Hylozoism by imagining worlds or civilizations where inanimate matter is imbued with life or consciousness. For example, fictional depictions of sentient machines or planetary consciousness often draw on the notion that matter itself can have intrinsic vitality. Criticisms and challenges. Lack of scientific evidence. One of the main criticisms of Hylozoism is that there is no empirical evidence to support the idea that inanimate matter is alive or possesses some form of consciousness. Modern materialism and physicalism assert that life and consciousness are emergent properties of complex, organized systems, not inherent qualities of matter itself. Conceptual ambiguity. The idea of life in Hylozoism is often criticized for being overly vague and difficult to define. What exactly constitutes life or vitality when applied to non-living matter? Is it merely a metaphor, or is there a specific, scientifically definable property that matter possesses? Hylozoism is a philosophical view that suggests life or vitality is an intrinsic characteristic of all matter. While it finds its roots in ancient Greek philosophy, it has influenced various schools of thought, including panpsychism, process philosophy, and certain forms of pantheism. Although it is not widely accepted in contemporary mainstream philosophy, Hylozoism presents a fascinating perspective on the relationship between life, consciousness, and the physical world, proposing that all of existence is animated by some form of inherent vitality.